Hi everybody, and welcome to my screencast for EDU 709, Innovative Uses of Technology. And for my two lessons, I have chosen to look at using Twitter within my freshman English classes and blogging within my sophomore English classes. So first up here, I have my Twitter account. Over here is my handle at Tara_Hunter8. For those of you that wish to follow me, join in on the party. And I have a variety of different points and purposes for using Twitter in my classroom, and I believe that the best way to get my students involved is to share that with them. So the first thing when I would introduce this to my students is actually I would share with them this article that's on teachinghub.com that talks about ways to use Twitter in the classroom. And I would explain to my students that even though it says 50 ways, we will not be using all 50 of them, but just so that way they understand my purpose, my point, my procedures, my thoughts behind using Twitter in the classroom. And so that way they know what's going to be coming at them and what to be expected at them, such as that first one where it talks about tweets of upcoming dates or assignments and different things, coordinating assignments, connecting with the community. Further on down, like number 9, write a story or poem, is going to be actually where we would start with this. And the way I've set up my Twitter for this screencast is that I'm looking at it as a more of a holistic point of view rather than one individual lesson. I don't want to use Twitter for one time, one instance, and then forget about it and move on to old things. My point in using any sort of technology is that I design units, lessons, ideas, concepts that can be repeated throughout anything that I'm going to be teaching. And my freshman students are getting ready to look at the novel Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And it's a short novel. It's only got 6 sections. And there's different points that we will be discussing, and because there's so much information in such a short time and with class periods and things like that, I want to make sure that we cover everything that we can about this novel. And so I have actually gone and created, wrong paper. I've gone and created a list of different discussion questions for each of the 6 chapters that exist within the novel to try and get some point of reference for my students. And depending on where conversations are going, what discussion we cover in the classroom will determine what sort of tweet I send out to my students. And that, I might select this one, and that might only be for my 2nd and 3rd hours, whereas this one might be looking at my 1st and 7th hours. And so depending on that point of view, and that's something that I can tweet or I can share within my Twitter about who's supposed to be responding to that one. But I can easily just go ahead and copy this from this document and then go up into my section here and paste this in. But to make this clear, I'd have to switch this over to George and Lenny's Voices Differ, and then I can go ahead and tweet that out. And that short little one sentence took a little less than half of what characters I'm allowed. And it's one of the things I really like about Twitter is that it makes you be short and concise. And a lot of times freshmen have issues with summarizing things and putting things into simplistic words unless they're like, I don't know. That's their most common response. For those of you that have high schoolers, I don't know is their most common phrase. Whereas here, they don't have to be very elaborate. They can go in, say what they want to say, and then move on and don't have to worry about it. And that's one of the beauties of using Twitter. The other beauty that I really like about Twitter is that it's not only an app that a lot of people can install on their phones, it's a website. Clearly the website is up on my screen here for you all to see, but not all of my students have cell phones, let alone smartphones that would be able to install the Twitter app. And so having the fact that it's actually a website allows for those students who don't have this phone to go into the computer lab before school, after school, during lunch, log in, respond really quick, and then move on, because it doesn't take long to respond to a tweet. And so these are things that we can carry on to the discussion points. And holistically looking at the unit of mice and men, I don't plan on having my students answer a tweet every day. That would get very redundant, very repetitive, and very boring to my students real fast. They'll burn out on Twitter. And so my thoughts are that, I put it out, they respond that day, maybe the next day, depending on what's going on. And then, a couple days later, we have another one. And so the purpose of using Twitter is that it carries on the discussion to another level, or it gets students thinking about a topic that we didn't necessarily talk about. As you saw with my list, there are a large variety of questions here for each chapter that could be posed to students about what is going on in this book. And then, one of my favorite ones that I have is just reactions to the end of the book. For those of you that have read it, the end of the book is, very drastic. So we have a variety of different points of reference to cover while using Twitter within the classroom, and that is my goal in using this piece of technology. Okay, welcome back. Now, for the second lesson that I've done, I'm looking at using blogs within the classroom. And here you can tell I have a very elaborate setup of my new blog for my English classroom. Just kidding. Clearly, it's not all that great because it hasn't been used yet. And the reason I haven't used it yet is because I'm going to be setting my blog up and putting up posts and different things along the same time as my students. But I'm jumping ahead of myself there for a second. I plan on using blogging within my sophomore English classes. And just like I did with my English classes, or my freshman English classes, I want to share with my students the point and the purpose of doing blogs within the classroom. And this is one of the better infographics that I've discovered about using blogs within the classroom. It talks about an introduction to blogging, what's the point of blogging, the different readings. I do really like the fact that it covers not only the dual citizenship about being, a writer online and then also like a writer in real life, but also like that it talks about the quality as well as what the writing is. And then it shows different things, the next level. Once you've established yourself as this writer, as this dual citizen, it shows you how you can connect to the world. And what this means is that you have just opened up yourself to a variety of different points, not only within, your classmates, but globally. And then, students always love their extras and how they can embed different points of media between audio, images, and video. And so this I would give my students as kind of a starting point, a frame of reference for them to keep in mind when we go to set up our blogs. And my school system uses Gmail, as does a greater majority of schools now. So we have Blogger connected with our Gmail, and so because it's already set up and it's free for us, that would be the point of reference that we are going to do. And so we would go into the computer lab and students would start setting up their blogs. Basic layouts, titles, anything of that nature is free for their choosing. And they would set this up and I would help them, guide them along to create their own blog. And then, just like what we've done in our different EDU classes, is we've shared them with other people, and my students would share them with me so that way I can keep this reading list to make sure that they are doing the required work, first of all, and second of all, so that way it's easier for me to monitor what exchanges are going on between the students and to make sure that any responses and posts are of an appropriate nature, which would also be discussed about within the class. Just like I would do with my Twitter account and with my students using Twitter, I want students to be focused on the writing piece, and this is both Twitter and Blogger are looking at ways to incorporate writing in a more technology entertaining sort of way. And using blogs would be this system for my sophomores. Twitter's very short, sweet, 140 characteristics, basic for my freshmen. My sophomores, I expect a little bit more, and so that's why I'm using blog, so that way they have a bigger launch pad to actually write down what they're thinking, what their thoughts are on the given topic. Again, I'm doing this from a holistic point of view. I would not use blogs just for the one lesson and then move on. This is something that I'm going to be perpetually using, and so students would, depending on what's going on, either respond to an initial blog post that I put on my page that you see in front of you, or we would do it as kind of like a reflection, a launch pad for them to just practice their writing. You know, one week that they have a free write. They just have to write whatever they're thinking about, you know, for what's going on. It can be a reflection about the day, it can be a reflection on a different class. That's the point. To start this off though, my sophomores are actually going to be introduced here in the next few days to the novel Animal Farm by George Orwell. And just like I did with my freshmen, I have compiled a list of discussion questions for them to be considered. And notice I only have, 7 questions here, because with blogs, I want them to put more time and thought and effort into it. When I post the initial discussion question on a Monday and their responses aren't due till Friday, it's so that way they have time to generate decent thoughts, an actual response that is not just a quick little tweet out. It's a actual writing piece that requires a little bit more time and thought process too. As well as these topic points, if you're reading the questions there, show a different level, because not only am I going to have students respond to the initial question, they also are going to have to respond to their peers. And so those are the questions, these questions that you see in front of you, require a little bit more time to process. So I won't be tweeting out a question, like I did with of Mice and Men every couple days. Animal Farm, these questions are meant to last a week or 2 weeks, depending on where we are going with our focus. But I already have the first one of these set up here, so that way this is like my sample, and that's why I have it sampled 1. So that way if I was to go ahead and publish this post, an important and universal theme of the novel is that power corrupts. Trace this desire for power on one character, illustrating how it leads to the character's corruption. Now this question deals with looking at characters over the course of the novel. The novel is 12 chapters long, so this is more of an end of the unit question, so it's not something that you put out there right away. And so when I introduce students to the blogs, one of the first blogging posts that I'm going to require them to do is just their initial reaction to using blogs. What are they thinking? What are they nervous about? Do they like this idea? Why not? That sort of thing. And I'm hoping that throughout the course of using blogs within the classroom, that their writing gets a little better. Obviously that's the main goal, but also they can see that there's a variety of different writing styles that exist. Blogs are a polished piece of writing that's not necessarily 100% as formal as a research paper. It's your own thoughts, and then putting those thoughts out there for people to see, and then having that exchange with their peers to establish another type of community within my classroom is really the goal that I'm hoping for within this blogging idea, is that my students can relate to one another on an educational level that continues their thought process beyond the classroom. Not just classroom discussions, but they have their own thoughts, and then they react to other people's thoughts throughout. And that is the dialogue exchange that is going to create a world of better writers, a better thinkers, and a better students throughout our blogging experience.